speed with where we're at right now. So I actually put those into the chat last night, but I don't think you'll have access to them if you weren't here last night, which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, that was my limitation in the JavaScript class. The one or two I missed, stuff was in the chat for practice, and I didn't have access to the chat to be able to run the things that the instructor had put out. So it is kind of weird that it's limited, but I guess I understand.
Yeah. All right, so here's this one. That's going to take me a couple seconds because there's 4. Well, actually, there'll be more than 4 now. Let me see here. So we got that one. And then we've got this one here. Oops. And then we've got, oh, okay, create table labels. So that is the new stuff. Okay, and then one more. Artists. All right. So you should be able to, and let me, yeah, that's fine. You should be able to just copy that. And if you got MySQL Workbench open, get a new, just a blank SQL editor window there, and paste that in there, and then hit the lightning bolt up at the top to run it. And that should get you up to date from the standpoint of the actual technology with where we're at. And then we'll do some review here in a minute and then kind of pick up where we left off. So, and this is Ian, just because you're where you are in my, what is this, Teams squares here. Which of the normalization forms talks about no transitive dependencies? Do you remember that from yesterday?
Yep, it'll be the third normalization.
Third normalization form.
Starts with a T,
that's exactly
so
right.
does third.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good way to remember it. So transitive starts with T, and that's the T for third. So yeah, that's a good way to remember it. Wayne, I see you're here. You don't have your camera on, so I don't know if you're here.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you here yesterday when we talked about the normalization stuff?
I was not here yesterday, no.
All right, we'll skip over you then. That's up to you now, Jazz. Which normalization form talks about only having one value in the column? Yeah, you can't have like a comma separated list of values in a single column. Oh, I see. You don't have a voice. All right, man. I had well, you guys probably know. I probably already said this. I had bronchitis like the whole last class, and I can't. I feel sorry for everyone. All right. Well, that would be the first normal form, right? So the normalization form that says you can't have multiple values, or you can only have one value, and also that all the table rows are unique. You can't have any duplicate table rows, is the first normal form. And then Christian, you get to give the actual easiest one, because we've already done the third and the first. The second normal form says what? That all non-key attributes are fully functionally dependent on the primary key, right? That's the second normal form. And I don't know why I didn't ask you. I just told you the answer. But anyway, it's because I love it so much. I just love normalization.
Good job, Christian.
Couldn't help myself.
Thank you.
All right. You bet. All right. So, Andrew, were you able to run that script?
So I pasted it and I ran it. So I'm not 100%, but I believe so. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll share my screen and show you. You just basically need to refresh probably, and I'll show you how to do that if you don't remember how. And then you should hopefully be able to see the changes. So if you hit this little Zen kind of icon right here, and then if you expand out your tables, you should have 2 new tables, artists and labels.
Yep, looks like I have them.
Okay. All right. So yesterday, we talked about, actually, we did a lot of select statements and a lot of update statements, right, on our tracks data, which is if you were to select all from tracks, you got to select your database first by either double clicking it or typing use database, right? But if we were to select all the tracks, you may recall that we started trying to do some updating, and we ran into some problems when it came to updating albums and artists and labels, because, for example, there's 2 albums named Mike Jones and 2 albums named Beast in Black, and every time we updated one of those, we had to update them both. And then it's like, what if you forget to update one, and then you don't have consistent data, right? So you don't have like I think on, well, I can't remember which one it was, but anyway, so it kind of got to the point where we realized that our database design here, or our table design, was not the best, right? And it was pointed out by someone, and I can't remember who it was at exactly the right time, that, you know, what we should do is we should split these tables up into their multiple tables, right? So we have song data and album data and artist data and label data. We should have tables for each of those things. And that's when we started talking about the normalization and the rules for normalization and what relationships are. And we realized that we have, and you guys can see my screen, right? Okay. We realized that we have kind of a hierarchy of data here, right? We have labels, okay? And then underneath that, we have artists, right? Because you can have many artists as a label. For example, we've got Beast in Black, and we have Kanye, right? So now each of these artists in turn, right, they can actually have multiple albums, right? So it can start looking like this, right? And then so we got artist, 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 and then we got album, album, album. And so you can see that a label can have many artists, an artist can have many albums, and guess what? An album can have many tracks or songs, right? And so if we were to look at that, whoops, wrong keyboard shortcut, right? Okay. So that's kind of the structure that we have here in terms of, how these things are organized, right? Labels are at the highest level. They have multiple artists. Each artist can have multiple albums. Each album can have multiple tracks, right? And then we can take this whole thing, right? Because that's only one label, right? Well, then we could have a whole other label with all of their data, right? So this is a separate label, right? And so you start building out this structure of labels, artists, albums, and tracks, right? And then actually we realized that we also have another one out there, and that was genre, right? A track is going to have a genre, and we didn't want to, we haven't really done anything with that yet, but we did realize that tracks can have genres, and I believe artists also had genres. And so we had that kind of, relationship between those two things, okay? And so after that, after we decided we were going to organize it this way, we started to create our tables, okay? And that's the 2 tables we created were labels and artists. And so we got the labels table here, right? We talked that every time we create a table, the first thing we're going to do is create an ID column for it, right? There are circumstances where you don't, but as far as this course is concerned, we probably won't see any of those, okay? And then you just put the fields that go with the label down there, okay? We talked about these being constraints, so not null constraint, meaning that this column can't have a null value in it. You got to have something in there. We talked, it's got this unique constraint, which means it has to be a unique value. You can't have 2 labels named the same thing. And then we added this check constraint, to make sure that any label founded year that was entered was greater than 1900, right? And then we created that table, which you guys should all have, and then got on down here to our artists, right? Did the same thing for artists. We got our ID column, right? We talked about what a primary key is, right? And once again, just to reinforce this, the primary key is the key that represents the entity, right? So this ID in this table represents this artist, okay? So if you have an artist ID 1, that will always be whoever artist ID 1 is, okay? It's just like your social security number or your DOD ID number, right? That is the primary key for you. It doesn't change. You'll have it the rest of your life. These other things might change. You might change your first name or your last name, or obviously your hair color is going to change as you get older, and you know your weight's going to change. So everything almost about you is changeable, but that ID always is going to identify you, even though everything else changes. Okay, and that's the primary key of an entity. And an entity and a table are basically the same thing as far as we're concerned. All right. And then, since we have this relationship here between labels and artists, we need a way to codify that and encode it into our design. And that's where this foreign key comes in, right? This foreign key, right? We talked the first day about a key identifies an entity, right? So this primary key for labels in here identifies the labels. This one for artists, ID, identifies artists. Now we have a key that's not a primary key, but a foreign key. And we're telling it that this column that we're making here is the foreign key. So foreign key label ID references back to the labels table ID. Meaning if we have an artist here, let's just say Prince is ID 1, okay? So ID 1 is going to be Prince, okay? That means every song or every, well, that was a bad, let's see. I should have done Prince. I should have done a label. So this is Columbia Records. All right, so it's a label, so it's Columbia Records. All right, so every artist that has Columbia Records as their label will have a value of 1, right? Because that will always reference back to ID 1, which will be Columbia Records, okay? That's a little bit abstract here, I know, because we don't have any data to go along with it, but believe me, that's how it works, and we will see more about it later. All right. We talked about this explain statement. After you create a table, once it exists, you can explain it. And that just tells you information about it. This is more for, this is a new project that exists and you're working on it as a new developer, and, other people have worked on it before you. You might want to know, some details about the table so you can have it explain the table to you. Okay. That's a pretty handy command. All right. You could also come over here and look at it on this side, expand out this stuff, but actually you don't ever get the data types when you do it this way, right? If you do the explain, it actually gives you the data types as well, okay? And then the other thing, I guess, the only other piece that we kind of talked about last time was why this is a foreign key, right? Well, it's still an ID, right? It's still a number, an integer in this case, and it still identifies the label, right, that it goes back to. But that label is not something that this table is about. This table is about artists, okay? So that key is actually from this other place, right? So if it's from another place, what do we call it? Call it foreign, right? So that's the only reason that's called a foreign key, okay? Because this key is not local to this table, right? There will be a value there, but it's a key that represents, a row from another table, okay? All right, so I know that was a lot, but that was just review. Anybody have any questions on any of that? Okay, let's talk about the gender, not gender, genre table. Okay. Or the genre column. We could say that an artist has a genre, right? And we could put in here, and don't do this, we could put in here varchar 50 and just leave it at that, okay? And so now we could put a genre in here, okay? But what we're going to end up with is we're going to end up with rock and roll, you know, depending on who's entering what. We're going to end up with country. We're going to end up with rap, soul, R&B. Might end up with rhythm and blues, which is the same thing as R&B, right? Rhythm. I don't know. That doesn't look right. I have no idea how to spell rhythm.
R-H-Y, sir. R-H-Y. T-H-M.
There we go.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
You got it.
Rhythm and blues. Okay. And so you see how these two are basically the same thing, and this is basically the same thing. And, you know, some people even would classify rap as rhythm and blues. They would be wrong, but they could, right? Soul, maybe rhythm and blues, right? You got country. I already said that. Red dirt type of country. You know, rockabilly, right? And so you might have, you know, inconsistent data here. And so what I propose that we do, rather than just, you know, us typing in what we think is a genre, is let's create a table called genre and put in the values that we agree on, and then come in here and then we'll put a genre ID column. Okay. And then that will be an integer. Okay. And then we will have a foreign key that is the genre ID, and it will reference the genre table, which we have not made yet, ID column there, right? That's how I propose that we handle the genre situation, okay? And since I've been doing this for 29 years, I think we'll take my advice and we shall do that. So let's go ahead and come up here in between these, and I have a reason for doing it between these. First, I'm going to comment that out because I don't want to run that again, although it wouldn't do anything if I did. Okay. So let's go ahead and create our table, genres. Okay. And we are going to close it off like that. Come up here. And what are we going to have? We're going to have int. Oops, I got to get these keyboard shortcuts working. Okay, so we're going to have an identifier for it. And then we'll just say genre name, right? Varchar. These things aren't very long. We'll go with 100. We want unique values in there, so we'll say that it needs to be unique. And without a name, it's useless, so we'll say that it can't be null. Okay. All right. So go ahead and type this up here if you haven't already for the genres. Okay. And go ahead and run that. And it should, if you refresh, then hopefully put a genres table in over here. Okay. While you're doing that, take note of something that I've done every time here is I've made my table name plural, right? That's generally what you do. You make your table name plural, okay? It's just what you do. You don't have to do that, but that's the standard that people do. All right, any trouble with the genre table getting that made? Okay. All right, so now that we have it, we actually, since we already have our artist table, we need to get rid of that artist table and create a new one. So we're going to, well, first off, quick quiz. Talked about it yesterday. Won't have it here anymore, I guess. Ah, there we go. Answers are on the screen, right? Do we delete objects or drop objects? Christian, I gave you the easy one earlier. So do we delete objects or do we drop them?
You delete them by dropping them.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, you drop objects, okay? And so we're about to drop this table, right? So we're going to come down here and we're going to drop table artists, okay? And the reason we're doing that is because we're changing it. Now, can you change a table without dropping it? Yes, you can. It's just easier right now to do it this way, okay? So after I've created my genres table, I'm going to comment it out so I don't accidentally run it again. And then I'm just going to run my drop table artists and create table artist with the foreign key of genre ID added in there, okay? So if I come back over here and refresh, I got my artist table, and if I come down here and I got my genre ID, okay? And you can actually look here and it shows the foreign keys that we've created on inside this schema navigator, right? It shows the artists. This is IBFK. I don't know what the B stands for, but it's index. Oh, index based on the foreign key. Okay. 1 and 2. Now, there's not a lot of information there, but at least you can know they exist, that it worked. We'll talk about these indexes later. Okay. All right. Everybody got their artist table made?
I do not. I think I did something wrong. I dropped it, and then what I saw there is now gone.
That's all right. If you ran the create and you don't see the table over here anymore, you might just try the refresh. Maybe you did run it and it worked. You can also check, there's a result set thing down here, not a result set, but let's see. Oh, mine's hidden, trying to make it show. There we go. Right. This output down here, kind of a history of what you've done.
All right, so I don't know if this is right, but I went back to what you sent me when we first started, and I reran it, and it's back. So is that the proper way to do this?
That's legitimate at this point because there's no data there. But
Okay.
then go ahead and run the drop table and the create table artists again after having added the genre ID to it.
Okay, got it.
All right. So rather than just keep creating tables, I think we should start putting some data in these before we get just too abstract, right? And what we're going to do to do that is we're going to use insert statements and we're going to use some SQL, right? And so basically all of these fields we already had in our tracks table before, right? And so here's what I'm going to do is I am going to, from a strategy, I mean, this is just me thinking out loud of how to do this. I'm going to come over here and get a new window. And I'm going to select all from tracks, and I encourage you guys to do this with me. Okay. And then let's look at the label data. All right, well, that label data is way far over here. We got the label name, label founded year, and label location. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to get just those 3 columns now, right? So my current select gave me all the columns, right? And I only did that so that I could look and see what was there as far as the labels. Now I'm actually going to put in just the columns that I want, okay? And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to come over here and just double click them from here. So label name, label founded year, and label location, right? So if I select that, okay, then I get my list of labels, which is good, but I've got duplicates in them, right? Okay. So if we're going to take this data here out of this select statement and use it to put into our other table, which is what I'm trying to do, right? What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to select basically into our new table, all right? Okay. So I want to build a set of data that I'm selecting here so that when I insert it into our labels table, it's clean, right? So I need to get rid of these duplicates, right? So there's a couple ways you can do that, right? I showed you guys something earlier called the group by, and let's just see if group by does that for us, right? Because if we do group it, then each one should only be listed once, right? So let's group them up and see if that gives us, it does, unique data here, right? Okay. You can leave that there if that's what you got, but I'll show you another way to do it as well. You could also, if you wanted to, select distinct. Label name and all that, okay? And yeah, that gives us unique values as well. So there's a couple of different ways, generally speaking, like you know, with any kind of programming that you do, a couple of different ways to get from A to B, right? In this case, I chose the group by because I wanted to remind you guys that it existed, and then also showed you the distinct because you should know about it as well. All right, now that we have that, let's do this as well. Select all from labels and just see what we're aiming at, right? So if I run both of these, so the first one is this, and the second one is that. So I'm aiming at this, and I see that my column names are different, right? And so I might have to handle that. I might not, but let's go ahead and do so just so that you guys have seen this. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little bit of formatting here just to clean it up and make it a little bit less busy. Okay. And I'm going to get rid of that just so that we're focused on just this. Okay. Now, everybody here knows what an alias is, right? Somebody need in? Yeah. Okay. So an alias is basically a nickname, right? Well, sometimes when you're writing SQL, the column names that you have are not the column names that you want. Okay. And so you can actually give them an alias. And so I'm going to alias this as label name. Okay. And then I'm going to alias this as label founded year, right? And the reason I'm doing so is so that we're aligning the data that we're trying to get out of the one table to put in the other table, right? So as label location, okay? And so now if we run that, then we actually have the same column names as we have in the table that we're trying to insert into. So that's helpful, I think.
Hey, sir.
Yes.
Sorry. So I'm trying to catch up. I only have my labels and my tracks tables showing on my catalog. I don't know if I did something wrong.
It's probably okay for now. as long as you have the tracks and the labels. And then here in a second, we'll switch over and let you share your screen and kind of make sure you're up to speed on it.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. So just to reiterate what we're trying to do here. So our data is in our tracks table, right? So our data is in the tracks table. Right? We want to get that data and basically copy it, if you will, into the labels table, right? Okay, so I'm working on getting the data so far, okay? So here's where we're at. We're trying to get that data, okay? And we're getting close, okay? Because we have label name, label founded year, and label location. We don't have any duplicates because we used our group by, right? And so pretty soon we'll be able to run this and take this data that it's returning down here, all of these rows down here, and move them basically into the labels table. We're taking data from one table, putting it in another table. All right, everybody get the concept of what we're doing here? Okay, if not, it's no big deal. You'll as we write more and more, as it's just like JavaScript. The more you do it, the more you kind of understand it. Okay. And so I can't 100% remember the syntax here. Let me see if I can just wing it. So insert into labels and put label name. Label founded year. And label location. No, wait, that's the wrong one. It's this one. Okay, so let's just look at this and see if this like just makes sense, just from even just talking English standpoint, right? What are we doing? Insert into labels. Okay, perfect. Okay, you may not know it, but these are the column names in the labels table that we're aiming at. Okay, so we're going to insert into labels. Okay, and what is it that we're going to insert? We're going to insert the label name and the founded year and the location from the tracks table. Okay, so let's just see if this works. Oh, it doesn't like it. I've done something wrong. Let's see. Copy response. What does it say? Our check constraint for labels check 1 is violated. Okay, actually I know why that is. Right. All right, so let's parse this error statement, right? It's like, hey, you tried to do that. I tried to do it for you. You gave me the command to do it, and I tried to do it for you, right? But I can't do it because you told me that there's a check constraint and I can't do it because of a certain thing. All right, well, let's go back and look at our check constraint that we made on our labels table. Okay, well, it says label founded year is greater than 1900. All right, so is there any data that we have where the label created year is less than 1900? Well, let's take a look. Boom, it's right there. See that? See how it stopped us from doing that because of that, basically that bad data that we had in there, right? Okay, so how do we fix that, right? Well, I'll tell you how I'm going to fix it. I'm just going to go change it, right? Select all from tracks. I'm going to run that. I'm going to find it over here, 19, okay? And I'm just going to double click it, change it to 1955, tab out of it so that it loses focus, and then I can hit this apply button, okay? Now it shows us what the update statement would have been, but I don't really care. I'm just trying to change it and go on with my life here, right? So I've done that. And now let's run this, just the select part of this again, just to make sure that we've got, good data now. Okay. Oh, interesting. Ah, this was why we started this whole process, because I updated it, but guess what? I didn't update it in both places. So we still have a problem, right? So our bad table design is coming back to bite us even more. All right. So let's make sure we fix the second version of it. Okay. Now let's run the select and just check, make sure our data looks good. Okay, all of that's greater than 1900, looks good. I don't think any of our other constraints are going to be problematic. All right, so let's go ahead and try to run this whole thing again. And I collapsed it all, but okay, so my insert says what? Six rows affected. Okay, I got 0 duplicates and 0 warnings. All right, so now let's take a look and see what's in our labels table. Okay, so now we have our labels, right? Interestingly, it didn't start at ID 1. Okay, that's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter. It's just an ID, right? But the reason that it didn't is because we had this first one that it tried to do that, and it actually used up those IDs when it was trying to do it. All right, but overall, why didn't I have to, like here, I've got just the label name and the founded year and the location. I didn't actually even give it an ID column, right? But it put it in there, right? The reason that it did that is because we set that to an auto increment, right? It's going to put those sequences in there for us, right? Okay. All right. So we've got some label data in there, so that's nice, right? Your guys may have 1, 2, 3, 4. Depends on how far you got before you tried to run it. I'll leave this up here on my screen for a minute. Make sure everybody's got it. And then if you have trouble with it, let me know and we'll jump in. And then Christian, I know that we need to get on yours and take a look.
Yes, sir. I'm confused.
It's all right. It's all right. This part here, you don't necessarily have to understand. It is good to know that you can take data from one table and put it in another table and how to do so, but that's not going to make or break you on the certification exam. It's not even going to ask you about it. Okay. It is going to ask you about table design and primary keys and constraints and those kinds of things, and grouping by, right, selecting and aliases, all that stuff. It is going to ask you about all of the other things that are associated with this query that I've written here, but you won't have to come up with this query by yourself at any point. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Christian, share your screen, and I'm going to take this real quick and drop it into into the chat in case anybody needs it. All right. Whenever you're ready, Christian.
So I'm getting like this right here and this. I'm not understanding. I typed everything like you had it.
Okay, we're good here. There's just a couple small things. So up here on line 2, you've got a semicolon at the end of that, right? Remember, the semicolon is the delimiter, right? It says you're done with this SQL statement. Okay, well, we're not really done with it at that point. We want line 3 to be part of it as well. So go ahead and delete that. Okay, and yeah, just like that. And then if you run that 1, 2, and 3, you should get 6 rows or so from, make sure you select row 1 as well. There you go. Okay, and there you go, right? And at the bottom it says 6 rows returned. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So your query down here on line 10, insert into labels. That's right. The label name, founded year, location. That's all right. Select label name as label name, founded year from tracks. Okay, so on line 13, you have a comma at the end of it, right? You don't need that because there's nothing else after, right? You're not selecting another column afterwards. There you go.
Okay.
And there you go. So try to run 10 through 18 now, or 10 through 17.
10 through 8. 17?
Okay, let's just see what you get. All right, let's see. So yeah, you ended up with that check constraint as well. And so what that means is it tried to insert the data, but couldn't do it because it violated one of the constraints that we set up. All right, so just run 11 through 17 now, which is just the select part of that. And let's take a look and see what it was. Okay, so yours was the same as mine, right? That label founded year 19, right? We had put a constraint on our labels table that said the founded year had to be higher than 1900, right? And so when it tried to put that Roughwood 19 in there, it's like, oh, I can't do that, right? And so what we have to do now is we have to go back and fix that, okay? So the easiest way here, yep, select all from tracks. And if this happened to anybody else, just do the same thing we're doing here.
And then just run it.
Go ahead and run that, and that'll give you the result set down below. And then you can, as long as over here on the bottom right-hand side it says apply and revert, then we're able to change the data here. So double click it and change it to 1955. Okay. And then go, hold on, there's one more, right?
Oh.
So it's okay, just hit apply here, it's fine. Okay, and then go up and find the other one that was 19. There you go. Change it to 1955, hit apply. There you go. And now go run 10 through 17 again. Well, it still didn't work. Check constraint. Interesting. Let's run 11 through 17 again and see what the issue is. Huh. Okay, so it didn't change one or the other of them. So just run that select all from tracks again, and we'll just have to change it again. I don't know why it didn't capture them both.
I feel like there was 3 on mine.
Oh, was there? Oh, yeah, you got 18 rows. That's all right. This will fix all that. So go ahead and do 1955. And tab out of it and hit apply. Yeah, you just ran the insert script one too many times. All right. Now run, okay. Now run 10 through 17 again. There we go. All right. And so on line 19, change your select all from tracks to select all from labels, and let's look what it put in there. All right, you're in good shape. All right, anybody else need a little guidance on this?
Thank you, Mike.
You bet. All right, Andrew. Share your screen.
All right, so I'm gonna show you what I got. It worked until I went back and added all the extra stuff that we were putting onto it. I'm gonna show you where I'm at here. 1 second. Okay, so down, share. All right, so I have everything here. I had a couple of the errors that Christian had. I was able to see some of the table. And when I run I'm getting syntax errors, I believe is what it was. Nope, not syntax errors. Oh, it's duplicate. Okay, I got the murder row situation. Okay. Yep, I think I'm in the same boat here.
Go ahead and undo that comment that you just did. And run lines 38 through the end there. Let's just see what it's pulling. Okay, so I kind of, okay, so you got murder row there. Is that all the data?
That's all it's
So it's
pulling.
not, okay, so you would have got to scroll. Okay. Well, then I think what happened is you already ran it once. Like, go ahead and select all from labels. I bet that the data is there.
Okay. Just run it by itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got it already.
Huh. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing with SQL, guys, is if you run it, you know, be paying attention to what you got down here at your results set at the bottom, whether it worked or it didn't work, and make sure. That's why I comment out the stuff after I'm done running it, just because years of experience, you know, tells me that I might accidentally run it twice or three times, right? So, all right. Anybody else need help getting that over there? All right. So we're going to do it a different way this time because there's, like I said, multiple ways to solve any problem. Let's go ahead now and let's put in our genres. Okay. So I still want, you know, to get a list of genres from the database that we have, right? And where's that stored? Select all from tracks. Genres, as far as the artists, I think we actually had artist genre, right? So let's pull artist genre from tracks. Okay. Take a look at the
Can't see
list
your
there.
screen, sir.
Yeah, you're not sharing your screen.
All right. Okay. And so select artist genre from tracks. Okay. And then we get this list, and there's some duplicates in there, which is fine. Okay. No big deal. Right. But this will actually show you one of the reasons why we're doing this, right? And how can we get rid of those duplicates? Anybody?
Group by.
Group by would do it, right? We can group them up. And so let's do that. Actually, you know what? We did that the first time. Let's do a distinct.
Okay.
I like it. I like where you're at, but let's just for purposes of doing different things, right? Okay. So we got rap, heavy metal, reggae, red dirt, and country. Okay. And so rather than write a query to move that stuff over, let's just manually move it over. Okay. So let's come over here to our genres table. And we can right click that and select rows, or we can come over here and just select all from genres. It's either way, whatever you want to do. Right. And actually, I'm going to get both of them so that I have my list here. Right. Okay. I do have my apply and revert down here, so I can do things in this thing. Right. So I'm just going to come over here, my genre name, double click it and type rap. Tab out of it. Okay. Don't put anything in the ID column. Right. Next one, heavy metal. Right. Okay. Tab. Next one, reggae. Okay. Next one, red dirt. And next one, country. Okay. Now, that hasn't saved yet. Okay. It doesn't save until you hit apply over here. Okay. Everybody able to do that? Put those, just straight up type those values in there?
I feel behind a little. How'd you get there?
By running select all from genres.
Okay. Okay.
And then you just double click, type it in there and hit tab. It'll give you a new row, double click, type it in, tab, right? Okay, and when you have them all typed in there and you like the way it's done, come over here, hit apply, and then apply, okay? And now if we select all from genres, there they are, right? Huh, mine put them out of order. That's interesting. How can we change that? How can we list them in order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Order by.
Order by, 100%. Order by ID. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if we did want to order by the genre name, we could do that, right? Then it'd be alphabetical by the genre name. Okay. We could also say I want it listed by order by ID, but I want it in reverse order. So descending order. So DESC for descending, right? So now it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. And there actually is an ascending keyword, but it's just if you leave it off, it assumes you mean ascending. Okay, so all this does is just the same as if it's not there. Okay. So, all right. Everybody got genres in? Okay. All right. Now here's where it gets a little interesting, right? Because now we need to put our artists in. Okay. Now we can and probably will just load our artists manually. Okay. Just like we did with our genres, right? So let's just start that process here. Okay. So new query here. Click all from tracks, see what we got in our artists. Okay, so we got their name, their age, their genre. Okay. All right. So that's cool. I'm going to go ahead and put that here just so that I don't get a bunch of noise. So artist age, artist name, and actually I probably should have put the name first. I'll fix that in a minute. And then the artist genre, right? Okay. So let me move this over here. Oops, I don't want that comma. Okay. So age, did I do age twice? I did do age twice. So name, age, and genre. Okay. All right, well, we know that we're going to put that into our artist table. So let's get that ready. Okay, there we go. I'm going to run both of these and I'll just start. Okay, so we got duplicates here. So let's go ahead and do a distinct on that. All right, so we're not putting in duplicates. All right, so I got Mike Jones, Beast in Black, Kanye West, age, all that, and then the genre. Okay, now another thing that we actually should have is the label too, right? Because we got to put the label in there. So label name, okay, right? Because we got to get that label ID in there. So we need to know what the label is, okay? So let's put one of these in here and then we'll take a break and then we'll put the rest, okay? All right, so I'm just going to put Mike Jones in first. So if I can just copy that. Do I got to double click it to copy it? I don't know. I'll just try. Oh, nope, put the whole thing in there. All right, so I got to type in Mike Jones. Okay. We called it artist founded year because we decided we wanted it to be the group, not the artist himself. And so we'll say Mike Jones art as an artist was founded in 2003, probably, right? All right, now here's where it gets interesting. Okay, because now we have IDs here, right? We can't put wrap in here, right? Because wrap is not an integer. Okay, so we have to know what our wrap genre was. Okay, well, come over here and look, and it was 1. Okay, so we'll put a 1 here. Okay, and then the label for Mike Jones was Murder Row. And so we need to go back and look at our labels and see what Murder Row was. Okay, well, Murder Row was 4. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and put 4. Okay, and so I'm not putting the ID in there because it's going to do that for me. I got the name, the year, the ID for the genre, and the label ID. Okay, anybody have any questions why we did that right there? And your numbers may be different, right? You're going to have to go look up in your genre, what is wrap? Okay, wrap is 1. And then what is the label ID Murder Row? Well, that is in mine, it's 4. In yours, it might be something else. Okay, so just make sure that you're getting the right ID based on whatever your data says, right? Anybody have any questions about that?
Sir.
Mhm.
Again, how did you get to that the result like grid like that one?
I just did select all from artists. And then I just started typing in my new row. We're about to go on a break, and
Okay.
after everybody else leaves, you can share your screen and I'll show you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody have any questions about where these numbers are coming from? Right. So genre ID 1 is wrap, and in my case, and label ID 4 was Murder Row. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to apply that. I got to tab out of that first. Apply it. And then it's going to show me, and I'm going to apply it again. And then close that. And then if I select all from artist again, there it is. Okay. And then I can add my second one. Right. Well, that's got to be an integer. Right. I'm not actually going to save this one. Right. This, if I wanted this to be wrap and I wanted it to be Murder Row as well, I would do that. Right. Okay. All right. Take a break. Come back at 20 past. Okay. Pretty long break here. All right, Christian, go ahead and share your screen.
So I keep trying to
So
run this.
Oh,
and
you
it
might
just,
not have. Did you create your artist table yet? Yeah. Okay, so you hadn't got your artist table created yet. That's all right. I think probably, yeah. So you don't need that one because you've already, yeah, there you go. And the reason it's complaining is because you don't have a semicolon at the end of line 16. You got to remember those. Okay. And let's see, create table, artist name, year founded, genre label. Yeah, that looks real good. Go ahead and run that. Okay, now it did give an error. Okay, I see what it is. Okay, on line 22, right? You've got year founded year. That should be artist founded year at the start of line 22.
Okay. Nice.
Okay. Now
That's
you've got it set for 1990. That's probably okay. Yeah, we did that, didn't we? Okay.
yeah.
All right. And so now, if you go back over to that SQL file 12, right, and run that now,
Oh,
There you go.
okay.
Right.
And
And
then
so
from
put
here,
in, all right, so put in Mike Jones as the artist name. Okay. And we'll just say he started making music in 2003. So that can be the year that was founded. Okay. Now here's where it gets a little tricky. You got to know what your genres are. So like on SQL file 10 or 11 up there, where did you make your genres at? On line 11 or SQL file 11 maybe?
Yeah, right here. 11.
Okay, so wrap is what ID there? It's 8, right?
8. Yeah.
Okay, so you just need to put 8 for the genre ID there. And then for the label ID, go, I guess, to file 10. And let's see, your labels for murder row would be 11, right?
But how do I know which, like, so like rap, like, so Murder Row would be rap?
Yeah, no, murder row is the label, right, that Mike Jones was under in our tracks table.
Oh, okay. So label ID 11, genre ID is 6.
I believe it was 8, but yeah.
Oh, 8. Yeah, 8.
Yep.
Yeah.
So put your 11 there under label ID
Oh, wait.
and then tab out of that and then apply it. Okay. And then we'll come back and do the rest of them here
Alrighty.
after the break.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You bet. All right. Those of you that are back already, you can just finish putting in your artists, right? So you can just go over here and look. I'll just leave it up on my screen, and you can see the artist name and genre and label. Put whatever you want for the year founded.
I'm not sure if you're intentionally not doing it, but you are not sharing your screen right now.
Well, I am not intentionally not doing that. There we go. Y'all see my workbench now? We'll do Beast in Black next. Right. That was, I don't know, year founded, and we're just going to make something up. Okay, they were heavy metal, and heavy metal genre is, on mine, 2. It's probably something different on yours, depending on, if you had any trouble with it. So make sure you look up the right ID there. So genre 2, okay. And then label ID was nuclear something. So let's go look at our labels. Nuclear blast was 5 for me, probably something different for you. Right? Okay. And then Kanye West. There, surely I can copy this. Copy field. There we go. I don't know, 2010. Now that was rap, so we already know rap is genre ID 1. We don't got to go look. And the label for Kanye West was Rockefeller. Rockefeller is 6 on mine, maybe something different on yours. Stick figure. Reggae was what? 3 on mine. Okay. And the label Roughwood was 7. Okay. And don't worry if you're not keeping up with this. I'll send you the script later. Just knowing that you can do this is enough, and knowing why we're putting this genre ID and this label ID over here. Okay.
Is fair.
Yes.
So I think I did miss that part on why we are like manually or like putting in the IDs and the genre and the label.
Okay. Fair enough. So the reason that we're doing that, hang on a second, let me get this, let me finish my thought here. Actually, it'll become more clear shortly why we're doing this. And it seems like a pain in the butt right now, I realize. But basically what we're doing here is, since we have in our tables that we created, let's see where they at. This artist table, right? we got this genre ID and this label ID, okay? And then we have these referencing back to the label table and referencing back to the genres table, right? That's why we're putting those in there. And that's why we're having to look up the ones that are the right ones for this person, right? It may seem that the way that we did it the first time was easier, and it was easier to get the data in there the first time. But we saw that any, for updating it or inserting it or doing it doing anything sophisticated with it, it became really challenging, right? So what we're doing here is we're splitting up our big table called tracks that we originally made into a hierarchy, right? And we talked about that hierarchy being this, right? And the way that an album, actually the way that an artist is related back to the label is through the label ID, right? And so that's why we got to put the right label ID in there. This little diagram I have here doesn't show the genre ID, but it's there as well. And there's actually a cool tool that we can use to look at these things. And I'll show that to you now. And probably should have done this before. This is something that we'll talk about later, but it's an entity relationship diagram. Okay. And wait a minute. Why didn't it have the other tables on here? Yeah, I want the same table 3 times. That's what I was intending to do. Okay. So here we have an entity relationship diagram, and it shows the entities that we have, or the tables, right? You're going to put a table for every entity. Okay. And notice it's got this label here, labels entity, right? Labels table. Okay. And it's got this line down here. All right. And then notice it's got this 3 lines. Let's see. Can we make that bigger? Oh, yeah, we can. Check it out. All right. So see these 3 lines here that look like kind of a triangle or a pyramid on the side? All right. What that means is this label entity, okay, can have many artist entities underneath it, right? So you got one label can have many artists, okay? And then in a similar way, but a little bit less clear, but it's actually exactly the same. It's just not as clear from a, human. Okay, I can't even scroll now. All right, I froze up my workbench. Stay here. Close it? No. All right. Let's leave the genres out of it for a minute. In fact, let me just remove that. All right. So, and let's remove the tracks. All right, so we have this diagram here, okay? And this is real similar to basically this, right? A label has an artist, right? That's basically what this is saying. You got labels, okay, and it talks about what's in there. And it shows here with this line that a label has a relationship to artists, okay? And so a label like Columbia or Murder Row or Rockefeller, whatever, can have many artists inside of it, okay? Now, the way that we set this up then is we say, here's this label. We're going to put all the information about the label in it, right? We don't have any information about the label in the artist table, right? That's not what the artist table is for. The artist table is to hold information about artists, right? Okay. But an artist does have a label, and so we're going to link it back to the label table with this label ID, okay? And what that will allow us to do is now that we come over here, let's see, oh, I lost what I did. That's okay. So we're saying, you know, in our track table, right, that we had, we said that Mike Jones was rap artist with label row or label of Murder Row, right? Well, if we look at our new tables that we made, right, the genres table, okay, rap is number 1, right, and Murder Row is number 4, and that's why we're putting the 1 and the 4 over here, right? That's where those numbers come from. Now, the reason they exist is so that we can later, and it won't look as impressive here, but later we can do this. So select all from labels, okay, which we know is just the labels that we have, okay? But now what we can do is we can join, okay, and this is a concept for next time or maybe later this time, depending on how far we get. But we're going to use this ID of 1 here as basically a bridge into the genres table and to pull in the genre information. And then we're going to use this 4 as a bridge into the labels table to pull that information, right? So here we're going to join 2 genres. Actually, let's go to artists first. Okay. And the way that you do a join is you join labels join artists on the labels dot ID equals the artist dot label ID. Okay, so see that? This is the primary key from the label table, and this is the foreign key from the artist table that we set up, right? And if we run that, okay, it's going to give us all the information for Mike Jones and his label. Okay, so now we have Murder Row, right? So we're bringing in his label, okay? And then we can bring in also the genre. Okay, so genres on the artists.genre ID equal to the genres.id, right? And that will bring in all of the genre name, right? So basically what we're doing is we're setting this up so that we have the exact same data that we had before, but now it's more organized, right? It's easier to update, right? Because now if we wanted to update the artist Mike Jones, we only have 1 artist to update, right? If we wanted to update the label, we only have 1, versus before when we were trying to update the tracks table, right? We were having to update multiple rows, right? So that the update situation is not the only reason for doing it this way. There's lots and lots of benefits to setting up your relationships this way and setting up your data this way. But this is just, you know, one way for me to show you that what we're doing is we're creating bridges between the tables so that we can then basically go pull in that related data. Okay. So I know it's a little bit of just hitting the I believe button for a little bit. Okay. But for now, let's just move forward. Okay. Get your muscle memory, type in select all from artists and, you know, all the other things that we're doing. Right. And then just by virtue of doing it a little bit, we'll make some connections. And then it'll become a bit more clear what we're doing. Okay. Does that make any sense at all? All right, cool. Let's see. Maybe it might make it more clear if we were to do something like, let's see here. Let me pull over. This. Okay. All right. Let's take it back a notch. Okay. All right. So we have a label. Let me make this bigger. Okay. But maybe not that big. All right. We have a label. Okay. Let's say Columbia Records. Okay. We give him an ID of 1, right? That's his primary key. Okay. And then come over here and then we say, CBS records. All right. These are the old timey records. Okay. He's going to be ID 2. Okay. We know this. ID 3. And then we'll say, right, murder row. Okay. So there's 3 different labels, right? Okay. And then we are going to list out some artists. Okay. So Kanye, then we got Elvis, we got Johnny Cash, we got the Beatles. Right. Whoa, totally messed that up. We got the Rolling Stones. Okay. We have the Monkees. We have Led Zeppelin. And let's see, then also maybe we will just do, Bob Dylan. Okay. All right. So these are artists, we all agree, or groups, right? Okay. Now, each one of these is also going to have an ID, but I'm going to leave that part off for right now. Okay. Now, if I wanted to say, okay, Kanye he was Rockefeller, so let's change that up. I can't remember how to do that, so forgive me if I've got that wrong. Right. So let's say he's Rockefeller, and then let's say Johnny Cash was Rockefeller and Led Zeppelin, right? I mean, I know that's not true, but whatever. And then this was CBS, and this was, CBS, and this was CBS, and then this was Columbia. Okay, and then one more for Rockefeller. Okay. So think about this from, and I don't necessarily want to use space or duplication or redundancy, but I think redundancy is fair enough, right? To look at this from. Okay, so I copied and pasted these, so I didn't make any mistakes. Okay, but what if I did, make a mistake? Okay. Well, now I've got Rockefeller and Rockefeller. Okay, and this Rockefeller. Okay, so those, and maybe I did this one even differently. I don't know, like that, right? I've got 3 different things here when really they all should be this. Everybody agree with that? Okay. So is my data valid? No, it's not. Okay, because I made mistakes when I was typing it in or whatever else, right? And keep in mind that these databases are holding data that users are generally the source of, right? And so, users, different people spell stuff all kind of different ways, right? So the idea that this would be spelled 3 different ways is 100% legit. Okay. So is my data valid? Okay. I mean, maybe it is. Okay. Is it consistent? No, it's not consistent. We know that at least, right? We can say it's not consistent. Okay. Is it redundant? Yes. Okay. Consistency you want, and redundancy you don't want. So we have 2 strikes here out of 3, right? And so you can see here that basically just by enabling us to put the labels here and just type them in by hand or use user input for those, right? We're basically 3 strikes and we're out. Okay. So we've got redundant data, which we don't want. It's not consistent, and I would argue that it's not valid, but whatever. Okay. So how can we make it valid and consistent and not redundant? And by redundant, I just mean that there's duplicates, right? CBS records in here twice, Columbia records is in here 2-3 times, Rockefeller is in there 2-3 times, right? So we want to eliminate that duplication, right? We want to increase our consistency and our validity, okay? And there's one thing about actually computer stuff that probably you guys may not have realized, at this point, but sometimes, virtually all the time, right, if you have 2 different things that are surfaces in 2 different ways, right, one of them has to be wrong, right? It just has to be. So one of these has to be incorrect as far as the Rockefeller spelling. But not only that, but it's actually better in some cases if it's wrong in one place, then it should be wrong everywhere that you do it, because you should have a single source of truth for any piece of data. Okay. Meaning if I spelled it wrong here, it should also be spelled wrong here, here, and here. Okay. All right. So how can we clean this up? How can we make it more valid, more consistent, and less redundant? Okay. Well, what we do here is we say, well, Rockefeller was 3. CBS was 2. Okay. Rockefeller 3. The Beatles, Columbia Records was 1. Rockefeller 3. Columbia 1. Led Zeppelin, Rockefeller 3. And then Bob Dylan, CBS Records 2. Okay. So this is their label ID, right? Now, if I spelled Rockefeller wrong here, that's fine. And there's actually, I don't know if you guys are, well, I don't know. Let's see. So what we can do then is we can say, all right, well, 3 references back to Rockefeller. And there's actually a way to do it here too, which is we could do equal, what is it, VLOOKUP. So we're going to look up this value in this table. Oh, wait, I got to do it this way. Bear with me on this. Just hit the I believe button on this, right? So 3 is Rockefeller. Two is CBS Records, 3 Rockefeller, 1, right? And so the label name, right? Where's this label name coming from? It's coming from over here, right? So if I misspell this, or if I need to fix it or change it or update it, right? Now it's changed everywhere. So even if it's wrong, at least it's consistently wrong, right? So we have that consistency, yes. Okay. Is it redundant? Well, no, because we actually only have the text of the label in the label table. We don't actually have it over here. This is just a representation of it that I pulled from the ID. So is it redundant? It's no longer redundant. We only have Columbia Records listed once, CBS Records listed once, and Murder Row listed once. Okay. And is it valid? Yes, it is. Okay. Right. So that is what we're building, right? That's the structure and kind of the whole purpose of a relational database. You got this bridge here, this relationship So 3 is 3. That's the color I used, right? And 2 is 2, right? Excuse me. Right, see how these are going back to there, right? It's not a hard concept. It's incredibly powerful once it's applied across all your data, believe it or not. Very simple concept that becomes incredibly powerful, incredibly useful. Okay. Now, say we throw in the genre as well. Okay. And we got rap, country, rock, and then folk, right? We're going to have 1. Okay. What did I do here? I just didn't get far enough. Oh. Well, actually, let's do this. 10. Right? Doesn't matter what the numbers are. Okay. They don't even have to be sequential. This could be 100. This could be 541. This could be 125. And this could be 1. Right? Whatever. Doesn't matter. Okay. What is Kanye? Right? Kanye is rap. Right? So this is their genre ID. What is Elvis? Elvis is rock. Rock is 125. What is Johnny Cash? Johnny Cash was country, 541. Right? Beatles, rock, 125. Rolling Stones, 125. Monkees, 125. Led Zeppelin, 125. Bob Dylan, 1. See, it's folk, right? So this goes back to here. These 125s go back to here, right? And you see, you know, if we were to type all this out, once again, we would have redundancy and potential inconsistencies and invalidities. But by doing it this way, right? And so if I come over here and I basically do this lookup again, which this is just the Excel way of doing a join, right? I look up this value. I'm looking at the value 100, okay? I'm looking it up in this table, okay? I got to make absolute cell references here. Give me just a second to do that. And I'm saying pull the second column. And then that, you don't have to worry about that last argument. Okay. Let's see how we got all this duplication over here, right? If we were to physically type it out, we would have redundancies. Okay. So we're saving space, right? So that's another thing, right? We're saving space by only having rap once, country once, rock once, and folk once. And then we're just referring to it, right? So these aren't real data that we have in tables necessarily. I mean, they're in the other table, right? But they're not in our artist table, okay? So we have more validity, we have more consistency, less redundancy, and increased space savings, right? So I guess I'm trying to convince you that this is better, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's how it is. And you'll just have to kind of trust me for now that this is better than just throwing everything in one big bucket. Now, if you are the throw everything in one big bucket kind of person, hey, guess what? There's a thing called a NoSQL database, right? Mongo and Google Firestore, right? Those are NoSQL databases, and they literally just throw everything in one big bucket, okay? And so, you know, and that's why actually a lot of folks use those is because they're more convenient from a pulling data perspective, okay? In certain instances. I actually can't think of any instance where I'd rather have a non-SQL database versus a SQL database, but I've been doing this for years and years and years, right?
You said pulling, sir, or polling? Like pulling the data? You think they say it's better? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you're using a NoSQL database, then you're pulling JSON objects basically, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but let's see.
Well, it's all reference data, right? That's kind of what you were just saying here. So it's just pulling referenced data from other places. Is that kind of the roundabout way? Okay.
No, it's more. Let's see here. If I can use ChatGPT or something to generate something. Okay, so this is actually a real good example here, right? You got a song, it still has an ID. The artist is in here with it, The Weeknd, right? And so when you're pulling this data, which is called a document, and when you talk about a NoSQL database, you're pulling a document, and it actually has all of the data that is related to it at one time. You don't have to pull multiple. You don't have to write multiple queries or whatever. You just say, hey, give me the song with the ID of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ABC, and it pulls all of this data. Okay. Now, the problem that I have with NoSQL databases is every song by The Weeknd is going to have this data here duplicated inside of it, right? Because you've got a different. I don't know if I've ever heard a Weeknd song, but say there's another song by The Weeknd and it's stored in this database. It's going to have this information duplicated, right? Sorry, I listen to old music. But yeah. And so it just takes up more space, right, to do this. And then it actually is harder to query. So now I'm like, well, now give me every song by The Weeknd. Okay, well, then it has to read every document, find every record that has the artist with the name of The Weeknd, right? And so you can do it this way, and this is extremely popular. I work on databases that have this all the time, applications that use NoSQL databases, right? I use them all the time, right? I much prefer the relational databases, right? Because I can take this, I can split it up into 5 or 6 different tables that are related, and I can take something that maybe's taking up 100 kilobytes here and make it take up 40. It'd be less space, it'd be faster, easier to query, lots of other things. But the reason that this is real popular is because generally, with the way that we are writing applications now, you are saying, hey, I want an object that I'm going to pass around. Well, you can map this to an object real easily. It's already an object. It's already using JavaScript object notation, and JavaScript object notation is what you're going to be using inside your app. So it is super easy to take this data, bind it to an object inside your app, and do things with it, right? So if this relational database stuff doesn't make sense to you, no big deal, right? You got other options, but just understand it, because eventually you're going to have to do something with it if you're going to do any kind of software development, right? Just like I have to deal with NoSQL databases, right? You'll have to deal with SQL databases, right? So I took the effort to learn this NoSQL stuff, right? And so yeah, you guys, yeah, and I'm not unsympathetic, believe me. And so, and I tend to go too fast just because I understand it so well. I think I'm, making all these good, points and all that stuff. And so, yeah, it's nice to step back a little bit every once in a while and just kind of talk about what we're doing and why we're doing it, right? Okay. So these, keep in mind, these are coming in from the relationship, right? Label name, and the genre, right? We're not actually storing that in the artist table. We're only storing the number, right? Numbers store a lot more efficiently than strings do as well. And they query a lot more quickly than strings do as well. Okay. So that's why we're kind of doing what we're doing, so that we can create these. And I call them a bridge because, we're actually, and I've actually called them things like wormholes or other things, throughout my career as far as this label ID. But it makes sense to me that it's, a bridge from one table into another. You're connecting these two things, right? And the way that you're doing that is through the ID column, right? It's called ID here. It's called label ID here, right? Just because we called them that, you could name them whatever. And then it's just, okay, so all the threes, have the same source data over here, right? Okay. So we can change that. It changes it in all the places over here. Okay. All right. Any questions? I mean, does that make any sense? Like
So
what
for
we're
me,
doing?
sir, I think this clarified a little bit. I think what I'm struggling with is like this definitely does good at representing what it is that we were making connections with. It's just, I guess, figuring out the actual connections I'm going to need to make on a query or a SQL file that I have to make the connections in the database that we've created. I'm struggling to make connections on like
Right.
the verbiage, I guess. Like that's just
Yeah.
that's what I'm struggling with. This help makes sense
Okay.
of what we're doing. It's just, I guess now I need to better understand how I'm doing it, I guess. So this
Right.
visualize definitely a lot better for sure. But now I just got to make the connection with what I'm typing to make sure I'm making connections correctly. And it's making the connection in my head. But otherwise, that's good for me.
All right. What about you, Christian? Did this, was this helpful at all to look at it from this kind of more data centric angle versus just the abstract, me talking about it type situation?
Yes, sir. I feel like it's just gonna take practice. It's only like day 3, and
Yeah.
I just keep it gets to me because I get behind so easily trying to like typing and stuff, and then like that's why I have to keep constantly like ask questions. But
Don't worry about that stuff. And actually, if it is more helpful to you to just watch, right, and then try to absorb the things, I will always go ahead and throw a script in there to do what I've done, right, so that you can get caught up and have the things that we have. So don't worry, necessarily if you're not the kind of person that learns by doing, but you can kind of learn better by watching and then doing on your own time later. Hey, that's 100% valid, right? Everybody learns differently. Okay.
yes, sir.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously at some point you're going to have to do some typing of it, and just so that you kind of get fluent with it, right? So, just knowing how to do the selects and the updates and the inserts and all that. I mean, having said that, you're not going to be asked to do an insert statement or an update statement or anything like that on the certification exam. You may be asked, you may be shown a couple of different ones and say, pick the one that's the right way, right? But knowing, recognizing the right thing is not necessarily as challenging as having to write it from scratch with no reference. You know what I mean? So,
Yes, sir.
so don't sweat it too much. Don't get discouraged. These concepts, they are a little bit foreign to most people, right? Representing, objects with IDs, right? And then referencing those IDs, right? That's kind of a foreign thing to people. So yeah, don't beat yourself up over it at all, right? And just remember that we're trying to be more valid, more consistent, and less redundant, right? And that's why doing it this way. Whoa, I don't know what I just did. But that's why, or some of the reasons. That's not even all the reasons, but that's at least easily identifiable reasons why we do it this way. Okay. All right. If we got no more questions at the moment, which I'm totally open to questions, but it's about time for a break. We took a pretty long break last time. We won't take quite as long this time, maybe 10 minutes. And so if there are no questions, come back, let's say at 13 after the hour. You know what? Let's say 15 after the hour, and we'll pick back up. Right. All right. So over the break, I went ahead and finished putting in the artists, and I went ahead and made a script over here that basically drops the database and recreates it entirely. And so I would encourage everyone, if they had any problem at all or just want to make sure we're all synced up, yeah, it's probably just a good idea. Just go ahead and grab this, grab this script here, just copy it, come over here, paste it in, and go ahead and run it. It'll drop your current database and just replace it with basically what I have. Okay, and that way we're all on the same page. We all have the same IDs and rows and everything. Okay, let me know if you have any trouble running that. And then after you run it, you'll want to hit this little refresh Zen type icon up here in your schema navigator. Jazz, I see you're putting your kiddo to bed. I have 3. One of them has her own kid that is in February she was a year old. So she's 14 months old now. And then I have 2 that are 17 years old, twins that are 17 years old. So I know all about the kiddo situation. It was very interesting having twins. People think it's twice as hard, but it's really not twice as hard because they kind of have each other to kind of hang out with a little bit, Yeah. And so it's actually, I'm kind of talking out of school here. My wife would be really the one to weigh in on all that stuff. But from my viewpoint, it wasn't 2 wasn't twice as hard as 1. However, they're both 17, both trying to drive cars, both trying to go to college, boyfriends and girlfriends and all these other things. So that, yeah, all kinds of fun. All right, for those of you that maybe came back just real recently, I went ahead and put a script into the chat here, and go ahead and grab that script and just drop it in a new window and run it, and it'll basically it'll delete your database and replace it with mine, and that way we all have the same exact everything. Right. I said earlier that if something's going to be wrong, it should be wrong everywhere. And so I guess now if I have anything wrong on mine, it's now wrong on yours. All right, everybody, let me know if you have any trouble with that. Okay. And I'm not going to save that. And that's one thing I kind of mentioned this the very first night. What we're doing here with SQL is, we're issuing commands to the database, and the database runs those commands for us, right? And so once we've done something, we're generally done with it, right? So it's not like JavaScript where you have to save the file and you're running the file over and over and over again, or it's an HTML page and you're running that over and over again. Once it's done, right? And generally speaking, you don't necessarily need it again unless you just want to have it for, maybe you're going to run the same script in production or, whatever else. And so I tend to not save any of these SQL files, unless it's just something, that I want to show you again or something like that, because, I've issued the command. I'm done with it. Okay. All right. So I'm going to clean this up and get a little bit of a fresh start here. And okay, let us dip into the coursework and see if there's anything here that we need to look at. So we still haven't moved over our albums and our songs, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to I'll do that and put it in a script so you guys don't have to worry about doing that. It's just repetitive. And as long as you understand why we're doing it, there's not any point in just sitting there doing it and taking up time. Okay. Let's see here. We went through data types and manipulation, or data manipulation, right? If you missed this, I'm just going to hit a couple of high points here. Integers are whole numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are whole numbers. Decimal is for things like precise values like money, 123.45, right? Float is for something that is not a precise number, right? You think, well, what could that possibly be? Well, things like the representation of pi, right? That's not an actual number that we can type out. It never stops, and so you would use float for something like that. If you find yourself using float and double, you're probably doing something outside of the normal, so double check you're doing the right thing. Same with char. If you find yourself using a char, make sure that you are using it properly. The key thing here is fixed length string. It's not the easiest thing to say. I gave a couple examples of when you might use this, like if you have a states database or a states table and you're storing the 2-digit abbreviation of a state, they're always 2 letters long, so that's fixed length. You could do that, right? Generally speaking, though, we're going to use a varchar, okay, if you're talking about a string, okay? Date and time, they are what they sound like. They use this kind of more what I consider standard year, month, date format, okay? So if you're putting in a date, then use year, month, date versus date, month, year. And then same for time, hour, minute, seconds, right? You can, and it may show up on the certification exam, store a Boolean, which is a true or false, right, as a tiny int, because you can store it as a 0 or a 1. But there's also a Boolean data type. Just remember, for the certification exam, you can also store it in a tiny int, okay? Whoa, don't know what that's about. Binary, you can store things like files and documents and pictures in a database. I totally would not do so. I highly recommend against that. I have done it, and it's a pain in the ass. As soon as you start backing that thing up, you're going to have backups that are huge and take forever. A file system is there for a reason. It's to store files, right? So if you have files and you're putting them in a database, rethink what you're doing. Make sure you're doing it. Make sure you have a good, solid reason to do so. Okay, continue here. Okay, you may have to know what some of these things are called in MySql Workbench, right? The navigator panel, that's this panel over here on the left-hand side. I am still sharing my screen, right? Okay, this is your navigator panel over here on the left-hand side. Makes sense, right? The toolbar, create a new schema in the connected server, okay, in the toolbar. Oh, that's this. That's these icons here, right? Okay. The area here where you do most of your work, that's just called the SQL editor. How do we use the database that we want to use? Well, we either double click it or we type, use it, right? Use music catalog. Okay. And like I said, I'm just doing a high level review real quick of some things. Okay. Creating a table, we know how to do that. Okay, describe. Now I said explain, but I guess you can also use describe. Let's try that out. So let's describe our artist table. All right, don't forget your semicolon. And I guess that's just exactly the same as explain. Okay, so nothing new there. Same result. Okay, so describe or explain, either way. That just gives you information about the tables. Primary keys we've talked about, right? A primary key uniquely identifies the thing, right? So the entity, the row, right? Okay. We talked about creating these relationships, right? Here's just some examples of how they do that in a like e-commerce setup here, right? A customer has many orders, right? And an order actually is going to have many products, right? And if you think about this, like when you go to McDonald's and they hand you your receipt, what's it got up at the top? It's got an order number, right? And then what does it have underneath that? It's got your Big Mac, filet of fish, quarter pound of French fries, all the stuff you bought, right? That is a master detail or a parent-child relationship. That receipt is literally a representation of a relational database, right? Got one order with an ID, all the products, probably got, your credit card information on there or whatever. Maybe it's got your name on it if they ask, like they do at Chick-fil-A, right? So you got your name, right? Once, because you're the customer, right? So that's a nice little visual of a relational database right there in your hand, your menu from McDonald's. Okay. We've done some insert statements. We haven't really hit those real hard. We'll revisit that. Just remember that it's insert into, and then the values, right? Column, value, column, value, column, value, right? No big deal. This is basically the script version of what we were doing by putting in the IDs, right? And they're just going through and doing it with a script versus we were doing it by typing it in. Let's see, what else we got here? Insert, update, and delete statements. Okay, I guess we're going to go over the insert statement again here. Update statements, we've done several of those. Okay, so just remember it's update product or update table, set, whatever, and then most of the time you'll have a where clause, right? Deleting is real easy, just delete from, and then with a where clause. Okay. And then we've done a lot of selecting, which is good. That's mostly what you do with a database. You select, select, select. We've talked about filtering with the where clause and all the operators that you can do. Anybody remember what the wildcard character is? Like that represents the kind of the anything part of this pattern search with the like. Anybody remember? Ian?
That'll be percentile.
Yep, that's the percent sign, right? And what we're talking about here, if we go back over here and we do, let's select all from artists and we'll do one. Okay. So let's select, see if we can get something that has more than one. SS there. Oh. All right, so we'll just do something simple. All right, so select all from artists where the artist name is like, okay? You got to do the single quotes. Always use single quotes for strings. And so let's say we want to find everywhere there's an EA together. All right, so we'll do any string of characters. That's the wildcard or the percent. So any string of characters, then EA, and then any other string of characters, right? And that should at least give us this beast in black one, right? Yep, right. And so remember, that's how you do that. It's just and let me make that bigger, right? The percent sign means anything, okay? So anything, and then an EA, and then anything, okay? I know that some of you weren't here when we went over that the first time, okay? So you're searching for a pattern, okay? We can sort it with an order by. We did that today. Oh, we haven't done this limit. All right, so let's touch on that real quick. So how many artists do we have? We have 6, okay? Say I wanted to, for whatever reason, actually, here's a very valid reason. Let's say the artist who has I'm trying to find a good way to say this. Basically the lowest date here, right? So Kanye West is in this list, the one that's got the lowest, the earliest founding, right? So if you wanted to find the artist with the earliest founding, okay, then you could order by artist founded year, okay, and that would be ascending, which you can type ascending or not type it, it's up to you. But then you could say limit one, right? Meaning give me only one of those, right? And you get Kanye West, right? This is actually a pretty common thing to do. Find the most expensive X, find the least expensive Y, right? So one of the ways to do that is order by that and then limit one, okay? If you limited 3, you're going to get 3 rows, right? Whoops. What happened? I did something. What did I do? Okay. All right, so now we got 3. So that's what the limit does. And you see up here, MySql Workbench is trying to help you out. It's going to limit everything you do by default to 1,000 rows. Years may not say that. The interfaces are a little bit different between Windows, Mac, and Linux, but just know that it is. Okay, so that was the limit. Okay, and let's see here. So we've done, that was data types and manipulation, data querying. Okay. All right, this is advanced techniques. We haven't done that yet. But we did talk about database design and normalization. Okay. Integrity, redundancy, consistency, right? Those things I was talking about earlier. Actually, scalability and flexibility. I thought some of these things had quizzes at the end of them. This ER modeling, actually, we haven't gone into this much, but we saw one earlier, right? I made one here, right? So this is an entity relationship model, right? We'll talk more about them at another time. Normalization we talked about. See if there's anything in here that might show up on the certification exam that we just didn't hit. Just keep in mind that it reduces redundancy, improves consistency and integrity, right? And that you can take it too far. Okay, it is important to know when to stop normalizing, right? So it's hard to take it too far. And then there is a use case for denormalization, which I don't care to talk about right now. All right, so I just want to make sure that we've covered everything that we needed to cover. How do we get out of this? Oh, there we go. In the pieces that we've covered so far. Okay. All right. Let's then talk about these joins that I mentioned. Okay. So I showed you, I guess I closed it. This representation here of kind of what we're doing. And I know some of you weren't in front of your computer at the time. Right. But basically, let's delete these here. Oh, and insert one. Delete this. Okay. Oh, like we can leave that there. All right. So we talked about why we're using these IDs here versus just typing in, the value. Okay. And as we went over that a good bit, feel free to go back and watch it on the video if you missed out on that part of it. For now, just understand that it increases consistency, validity, it decreases redundancy, right? Increases actually scalability and flexibility, right? So there's lots of good reasons to do it this way, right? And what we've done here is just, this is a representation of like our artists, or actually this is just some others that we made up on the fly, but Kanye is label ID 3. Label ID 3 is murder row, right? Kanye is genre ID 100. Genre ID 100 is rap, right? Elvis is label ID 2. That's CBS Records. Genre ID 125. That's rock, right? So we kind of went over this whole concept here, right? And then I actually did a thing here where I basically looked up these values, right? So if I want to look up the value 3, okay, and I want to look it up in our label table, basically, okay, I can do that, right? Because we have basically a relationship there, right? You don't have to know anything about this spreadsheet method of doing this, right? Just know that I looked up value 3 over here in this table and it gave me murder row, right? If I look up value 2, it gives me CBS record. If I look up value 3, murder row again, right? And then if I look up value 1, Columbia Records, right? This is conceptually what you were doing if we're doing a join. We're finding matching rows from other tables based on the IDs, based on the relationships, right? So we found matching rows from labels over here based on the label ID, okay? Everybody understand that, right? Okay. You do the same thing in SQL, all right? And it's an important part of SQL, okay? And so to do what I just did over there, right, where we've got select all from labels, okay? And then select all, oops, I forgot my from artists, right? If I select all from artists, I'm going to get, well, that's genre or label ID 1 or 4, right? That doesn't tell me a whole lot as a human, right? As a computer, this makes world of sense. Yes, it's a 4, right? I know what to do with that as a computer, right? As a person, I need the text that goes with that, right? And so what we're going to do, just like we did here, we're going to look up the value 3 in the label table and put it here. We're going to look up the value 2 and put it here. We're going to look up the value 1 and put it here, right? And so forth, right? We're going to do the exact same thing, but it's just a little bit actually easier. Okay, the syntax is better for us. Okay, and the way that we're going to do that, we're going to select all from artists. Okay, and then we're going to join them. Okay, joining, and there's multiple types of joins. What this actually is an inner join. I'll type it out fully so that everybody sees that. Right? All of it's doing is saying, hey, I want to get data from both those tables. That's literally it. I want to get data from the artist table and I want to get data from the label table. Okay? That's all an inner join means. I want to get data from both tables. Okay? Now, what is my bridge between these two tables? Okay? My bridge is this label ID here, right? That's how I can pull data from the label table, basically, and pair it up with the artist table, just like I did here, right? I pulled data from labels over here and paired it up with the artist based on that number there, right? Okay. So how do we do that here? We have to tell it, okay? We say, well, we want to use the label ID column. Okay. Well, how are we going to use the label ID column? Well, all we got to do here is say on label ID equals the labels dot ID. Okay. And so just like over here, I said 3 equals 3, then it's murder row, and 2 equals 2, then it's CBS Records, and 1 equals 1, then it's Columbia Records, right? This join is going to do that for us. It's going to say, if it's 3, then give me 3, right? If it's 2, then give me 2. If it's 1, then give me 1. Okay, so if I run this, it's going to pull all the information from the artist table. It's going to go and get, for every row, the matching label. Okay, what happened? I may have to be a little more specific here. I think I've done something. What have I done? Where's my results? Oh, well. All right, Christian, you're not the only one that spells it that way sometimes. There we go. All right. So see how it went and it got, and you can see here this bridge, right? 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7. That's the label ID and the label's ID, right? Does that make sense to everyone? We're basically creating a bridge between the two tables by saying 4 equals, if it's 4, then give me the number 4. If it's 5, then give me 5. If it's 6, then give me 6. Okay. This is an important concept. So take all the time you want to understand this, right? But it's just exactly the same as this, right? We're saying this was 3. Go look up the one that's 3 and give it to me. This was 2. Go look up the one that's 2 and give it to me, right? This was 4 in our artist table. Go look up label 4 and give it to me. This is label ID 5 in my artist table. Go look up 5 and give it to me. Okay. All right. Now, the thing about an inner join, because there's 3 types of joins, by the way. This inner join is basically going to find matching rows in both tables. All right. Meaning, if I have a label, right? So if we look at all our labels, right, we've got 6 of them. Okay. And they're numbered 4 through 9. Are all of those labels represented here? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They are. Okay. Let me add another row to my labels table and see what happens. So I'm going to add CBS. Okay. 1925. And they're in, I don't know, New York. Okay. Now, I've added this label. Okay. If I select it, I see it. Okay. However, I don't have a matching artist for that label yet, right? So if I run this, then CBS Records isn't going to be there because it's not, there's nothing to pair it up with, you see, right? There's no artist that has CBS Records. So there's no label ID here to look up for 13, right? Or whatever the number that CBS Records became. Yeah, 13. Okay. This is a super, super important concept. Fundamental. All right. Everybody feel like they're at least on the edge of grasping that, right? Maybe even more. Okay. Don't overthink it. Okay. It's literally just saying, hey, I've got a label ID 4 here in my artist table, right? I've got that label ID. Go look up the label where ID is 4 and give it to me. Okay. And it's just going to do that for every row. Okay. Now, we could make this a little prettier, right? If we wanted to. Oh. Okay. And say we don't necessarily care about the year and the location. Let's just see the name. Okay. And I don't really need these IDs, but I'm gonna leave them in here just because I want us to keep them, you know, front of mind. And what have I done here? Genre ID, get rid of that because I got it down lower. Get rid of that comma. Okay, so ID, artist name, get rid of the, so this is the artist's ID. We'll leave it in there. Okay. I'll actually even alias it again. Remember that as artist ID so that we know that that's the artist ID. Okay. And then this ID down here would be the labels dot ID. And, you know, and this is the label ID from the labels table. Okay. So let me run that. This doesn't change the join. It just changes what the data that we see. ID is ambiguous. Okay. Artist, S, artists, plural, Mike. There we go. Right. So I got rid of some of that extra stuff. And really the main thing that we care about, artist name and label name right there, right? Data from two different tables. We built a bridge between the two tables, and we did that on the ID column, right? On the foreign key that we made way back yesterday. The whole reason we made that foreign key was so that we could do this, okay? All right, let's do another one because we have the genres too, right? So we could select all from artists. Join genres, right? Like I said, all that means we're just taking data from two different tables. I'll type out the inner, although you don't have to. It just assumes you want an inner join if you type join, okay? On, all right, well, what is the column that we will use as our bridge? It's going to be this genre ID column, right? That is the piece of information that's the same in the artist table as it is in the genre table, is the genre ID, right? So we have artists dot genre ID equals the genres dot ID, okay? So we do that. Here we have Shaya Zamora is country, Beast in Black, heavy metal, Mike Jones rap, Kanye West rap, Cross Canadian ragweed, red dirt country, and stick figure reggae. Okay. Right. Data from the two different tables over this bridge, this 5 and 5, 2 and 2, 1 and 1, right? Genre ID to the genre ID. Okay. That label ID is kind of getting in the way there, but that's, you just ignore that for now, right? Okay, so an inner join finds the matching rows in both tables, right? So up here, we never had CBS records because there was no artist on CBS records, right? So could we put an artist in on CBS records and make it show? We can, right? Let's go ahead and do that. I'll show you an easy way to get an insert statement. Come over here to artists, right click, copy to clipboard, the insert statement, okay? Do that again. Copy to clipboard, insert statement, okay? Notice there's updates and deletes and creates and different things. There's lots of cool things that you can do in this menu. So, you know, if you get into it and you really want to, you know, dig in a little bit more, explore that menu, okay? So I'll paste that over here. I know we're not putting an ID in because we're going to let it auto increment that for us. That's fine. And so for artist name, let's go ahead and put Elvis in here, right? He deserves it. If anybody does, right? And 1950. and his genre is rock. Rock. Well, we don't have rock yet, do we? Interesting. How do we not have genre of rock? Okay, what does that mean we got to do? Just come down here, put it in, right? Apply, close. Now that's ID 6, okay? So he's ID 6 for genre, and his label ID is CBS Records, which came out as 13. I just happened to remember that from the other screen. And so let's go ahead and insert this. Okay. And let me see if it worked. It did not work. Artist check 1 is violated. So what did we do with our check? Okay, so here's another important thing. I deleted my insert or my create statement for artists, or maybe I did, maybe I didn't. No, here it is. If you need to get that back, you can right click and copy to clipboard the create statement. Okay, and then you can go look at that. All right, so what is my check constraint that I put on here? Artist founded year. Okay, now it breaks it up a little bit differently, and it says, well, artist founded year greater than 1980. Oh, okay. So I can't put Elvis in there from 1950 because we're saying greater than 1980. So we'll just have to fudge that a little bit. 1981. Okay. All right. Okay, it worked that time. I got my green checkbox. Now if I come up here, there's Elvis with CBS Records, right? Remember, CBS Records wasn't there earlier, right? So an inner join, and the fact that I'm telling you this for like the third or fourth time should be meaningful, finds the rows that match in both tables, okay? So since there's a label ID of 13 in the artist table and a label ID of 13 in the label table, that's why it's showing up here, right? Okay, that was a lot, right? Don't overthink it though, okay? It's literally just going through the rows, right? So if I was to do this as a human, I would say, okay, well, here's my artists. Okay, I've got label ID 4. Actually, watch this. I'll show you something from next time. A subquery. Select the label name from labels where the ID is equal to the artists.label ID. Right? So I don't know if this helps or not, but so I've got, let's leave that off for a second. Oh. Got that. Select all from artists. Okay. Then I'm going to throw another basically column on there, which is the label name from the labels table. And I'm going to match it up on this label ID of 4 right here, right? Okay. Same idea. This and the join are basically the same thing. This might be a little easier from a, reading it standpoint to see what it's doing. All right. Okay. Like label name. And I could make it even a little bit more obvious by doing this as ID. Okay, so 4, right? This artist label ID, where it's 4, give me the 4th one, right? Where it's 5, give me 5. Where it's 6, give me 6, right? So that is basically the same thing as saying join on the ID. Okay, I don't know if that muddies the water or if that helps. I don't know, but don't overthink it. Really you're just matching them up. Okay. All right, it's pretty close to quitting time here. Anybody got any questions?
For just real quick, when like you do like when you're using the equal sign, do we have or like typing in general, do we have to include like the spaces and stuff?
So generally speaking, no. SQL should not necessarily care about the white space, right? So if you
Mhm.
leave that out, that should be just fine. If you put too many in, it should be just fine. If you really want to try to break it, you know, get rid of this other stuff so I can run the whole thing there. That's fine, right? It really doesn't care about the space. Okay.
Okay. And um sorry, about the test. How long is a test?
It's supposed to be 90 questions. Last I heard though, they kind of messed up and only had like 51 questions on it, right? And so that could be good, that could be bad, depending on which 50 questions it is, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think, and actually towards the end of this, the last couple of nights, what we'll probably do is just full on quizzing. I've got a couple of sets of quizzes. I don't know if you guys have ever used this thing called Kahoot, where you can log on and use your phone and put in your answers and kind of compete against everybody else. I've got one of those made. There's a bunch of quizzes inside the coursework that we'll just kind of go through, and so we'll kind of do some cramming, kind of the last couple of nights. Um, I want to make sure that you guys definitely get everything easy correct, right? The gimmies you want to get those right, and then the ones that are kind of this academic, definitional type stuff like that normalization, right? I want you to get those too, right? So I want to give you ways to hopefully memorize those, or like little memory tricks to be able to get those. And so yeah, uh, I don't think that, if you guys stick with it and, stick with me long enough, you'll start to get a feel for this stuff. And I don't think that any of you will have any problem with the certification exam. Okay.
All right.
The
Thank you, sir.
questions that you're asking me indicate that you're picking up enough that I'm confident that, we can get you there. Okay. Now I asked, this is like the 5th or 6th time I've taught this class. And before the last class, I asked Hector, like how the students do. He said, we've never had a student not pass it that you've taught. Okay. So I don't know how much you guys know about the Navy and the nuclear program in the Navy, but to get into that, you got to take all kinds of different tests, and you got to be like top of the top to get into that. Okay. And so I know how to take tests. That's what I did in the Navy. I did nuclear program, right? So I know how to take tests. I know how to prepare for tests. I'm going to use all of that to help you guys do the test as well.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. So, yeah, be confident. Everything's going to work out. All right. Any other questions or anything? All right. I will see you. Oh, I know it's Easter coming up, but Easter's on Sunday. A lot of people take either Friday and or Monday off. And actually, I'm taking those days off as well, but we're still going to do class that Friday night and also that Monday night. Okay. If you're not available, that's cool. Just watch the video, keep up with the coursework. Okay. But we are going to do Friday and Monday night just to stay on schedule. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. See y'all tomorrow.
Thanks, sir. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks for your time. Bye bye.